Okay, great. Hey, hi, Carolyn. I'm so pleased today to have Carolyn Langley. She is the garden coordinator for GLocal. And GLocal is a uh, community partners is an, sorry, that means GLocal Community Partners is a nonprofit whose mission is to mobilize, train, and connect volunteers with our American neighbors. And I have to say, I went to a training a couple years ago with some people from church. This had such a big impact on me. Matter of fact, I left going and telling everybody about it because I was so excited, and it
Oh,
really
good.
puts puts some things in perspective. And so I was really excited to have you on the podcast today, just so that I have a better and everybody else kind of understands a little more what it is about. So why don't we start with you sharing um, what it is exactly, and then how you got involved with it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for just inviting me representing GLocal to come and share about it. It's a small organization started in 2014, but people are starting to hear about it more. So it's exciting just the how people are hearing it, you sharing your story through training. It's exciting just the community and the church, how they're hearing about GLocal and jumping in. So it's been, like I said, in existence since 2014. And thank you for reading the mission statement. Yeah, we really just, our focus, is to just mobilize and train and connect the community here and the church also. We just recognize, obviously, it's a challenge to work with those that have come as refugees. Once they come here, we call them new Americans because they're no longer refugees. Their refugee journey is over. So we just want to help them connect to the greater community through friendship, and mutuality is our biggest thing, our biggest concern. Yes, there's a need. There's obviously things and there's needs that they have initially, but ultimately, we really at GLocal want to encourage platforms of connection and friendship. So we kind of do that through different tangible platforms of connection is what I call them. So the garden that I manage is one of them. And then we also offer training to those that you attended, Nicki, just to educate our volunteers, help them be more culturally sensitive, understand what it means to be a refugee. We also do baby showers for mothers that are expecting. Those are really fun. We also offer a woman's English class, a weekly English class. So that's also an opportunity for volunteers to connect with women in the community. And then we offer throughout the year different community dinners. So we'll do like a Thanksgiving celebration where we'll invite women in English class and baby showers along with volunteers to come share a Thanksgiving meal together. We'll do events in the park. And then we also, of course, offer community members to donate lightly used furniture and household goods. So we can use those for those families in need that do move into their first apartment and have just basic needs to kind of help offset the cost of just they're starting lots of things and working, but they still need some financial help at the beginning, so that's a really huge help. So you asked me how I got connected with GLocal. Was that the other question?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I joined in 2017. I heard about, so Nick and Laura Armstrong are the co-directors of
Uh-huh.
GLocal. They moved back they were missionaries in Indonesia for about 20 plus years. They moved back in 2013, I think, and then they just had a heart for those coming to the Boise area since 1980. And not many people know that, but we've been receiving refugees in Boise area and Twin Falls since about 1980. So that's about 20,000 refugees up until now. But Nick and Laura really had a heart. They saw a gap between the resettlement agencies that were just overworked, trying to get these folks into homes and settled,
Right.
and the community and the church at large, just really wanting to show the love of Jesus through welcoming. So I met them through mutual friends at a church I was going to, and I volunteered with GLocal for a year, and then I was invited to join staff. and I already had a background. My background is agriculture. I've studied it. That's my bachelor's degree. I worked overseas practicing that. Been in various, and so when there was an opportunity to manage a community garden project, yeah, I joined the staff and then
Yeah.
have been, yeah. So that's kind of how I started. For me, it was like a real answer to prayer because I had mentioned I worked overseas in Haiti and Philippines, and so I really missed cross-cultural encounters. Kind of felt out of place when I came back to Idaho, even though I'm from Meridian. So it was just a very much providential match. So I'm very grateful for that.
And that's great. I haven't been a missionary like you. But I've been involved with missionaries before, and I used to substitute teach when my kids were little, and I did ESL, ELL as they call it now, for a long time. And
Oh, great.
I just can remember some of if you buddied up and went to a class, I remember one of the kids just saying, um, I mean, he was so concerned with even spelling like the word the right and things. He goes, I just really want to get it right. And I was just really impressed with how hard that they work. Like you say, there's been refugees coming for a really long time to Boise. And I don't know if the community really understands how many different groups and from different countries, and when something happens in a country and then they come, I don't know if people really understand that. There's a lot of ways to get involved, and I wish people were more involved. And that's why I just really tuned into this, because I see it as such a really positive thing. If you're just tuning in with us, we have Carolyn Langley. She is the garden coordinator for GLocal, which is helping with um, the refugees to come and become new Americans and the things that they need, and with housing, and our church helps with furniture moving and all of that, all the different things that you can do to help with people. And so Carolyn, one of the things I had wanted to know is, if you think about the different ways to help, some of them are like a mental way of just in thinking and partnering with them, as you say, friendship and that kind of thing. And some things are needs. And one of the things at the training that I was thinking of is how important having a telephone is so they can get a job. And I don't know, just things like that we don't really think about. But if you were fleeing a country and coming and you didn't have anything with you, some things that you would need. What are some ways that people could have the biggest impact? People that maybe from the outside just want to help a little bit, what could they do?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. So yeah, and I think there's this it is overwhelming. I'm glad you kind of mentioned some of the barriers when families come here. And so I just feel like, one thing that we as the church and also the community at large is just to offer, I call it a soft landing. You're not a caseworker. You don't have to have all the answers, but you
Right.
are an expert in living in this area. So things like, yeah, how do you help them find a cell phone? Or how do you help them even riding on the bus with someone, just helping navigate the bus system, or even going to the grocery store, just a simple task of just, going to the grocery store and navigating that. So yeah, I think, and I felt this way when I moved back to Boise, just like this need, and like I kind of scrambled. So my story is a story of caution. Like start small, I guess if I'm going to summarize it. Educate yourself, which is a plug for our training. Attend our training. That's huge. I think just to help educate you, kind of orient you on the greater picture and how it connects here, how you connect into it. And also having cultural sensitivity. There's a lot of barriers. There's language and there's culture. We
So
are
many.
what I call, yeah, like there's just like I don't think people need to be afraid that's going to take time. Like I say, start small. Maybe you start donating to start out with, and that's great. Or maybe you attend a baby shower. That's a much smaller kind of demand on your time. So yeah, I would say training first, and then start small. yeah, I can't really pinpoint a specific need. I will say, having done this for, yeah, it's getting close to 10 years, you know, yes, there is, like I said, there are needs, but I think there's a greater need just for friendship and connection and to give dignity and empower those. These people come here as survivors and they have incredible skills and they have their own minds and creativity and interests. So I think just getting to know them and helping them thrive and giving them opportunities to grow and become their own person here is really helpful. So that doesn't always mean doing things for it means walking alongside families. I hope I answered your question. I
Yeah,
think, yeah.
I think one thing that was really, really had an impact on me was in thinking of, you know, what someone fleeing their country or a refugee rather than who didn't really want to leave, as opposed to maybe someone who's, you know, like a person just coming from another country. Uh, one of the things, we did that little thing where you put the papers out and you put
Oh,
the name of a
yes.
child and that kind of thing. It's like if you had to leave, if someone came to your town and your house and they said you had to leave in 10 minutes, what would you
Mhm.
take with you? Could you go out to the field and get your husband? Could you take the baby that's right with you? There's a pot of beans on the stove. What
Oh,
things, if you just had a backpack and you could only take one kid with you, which one would you choose? That had a
wow.
really big impact on me. And also the fact that these people, it's not like these are just a bunch of people that haven't been working and they're coming. Some of them are like lawyers and doctors, and there's a certain amount of respect
Exactly.
that you really need to have for them, um, as human beings and their roles, and that they were contributors to their community, but their community might have been
Mhm.
hit with war and all of a sudden they had to leave, and they had to leave everything that they love and they
Mhm.
didn't necessarily want to leave. And so that had a really big impact on me.
Mhm.
Like, because people just
Yeah.
don't think about that. You're always hearing
Yeah.
that refugees want to get other family members. Why do they want to bring other family members? Well, because they didn't all get to come. And, I
Right.
mean, I don't know. We need to get people
Thank you.
thinking somehow.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, just the implications, when you mentioned that, like family separation is pretty common when there's a
Mm,
crisis and families get separated. And it is like you talk to the families. For example, I'm sure many of our listeners are aware of what happened in Afghanistan. Basically, the government collapsed was the US
mm,
pulled out and Taliban just took over. Very sad situation. And so we did get an influx of Afghans into the US. And so, you would talk to families and get to know them. And you're just like, aren't you so glad you're here? And they're like, yes, but I have my extended family. And
right.
there's such a, they just know the situation they're in that's very unsafe. And so it's just this like they're here, but their heart is back home, and there's this tension and expectation on them to help. A lot of the Afghan families are sending money back to their families' home to help them. So it is a bittersweet thing. And I'm glad you pointed out the loss simulation exercise that you did in training, just what happens in those moments. You have to decide these quick things, and you're not given the choice to come to the US. This is the decision that was made for them. A lot of families would much rather be in their home country if they could, but it's simply not safe anymore. So, and I think too, what I like about the training is it really points out there's many different ways to come to the US. And you pointed out some people immigrate where they choose to come to the US, either through a worker's visa, like Micron's a really big employer that
Mhm,
has a
mhm,
specific visa that brings in specialized workers. But refugees is a specific immigration pipeline, and so people don't recognize how much vetting goes into it,
right.
how long people wait in refugee camps. That's the other hard part, I think, is the limbo families experience. Like they might be in a refugee camp for 10 years, and that's the common
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And only like less than 2% actually make it to what we call third country resettlement. So the US is one. There's about 20 other countries that do the same thing as the
Mm,
US. But yeah, it is like it's great that they're safe, but it's like bittersweet. They're usually
Yeah.
not with their extended family. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That
hard.
is like so hard. And then thinking about the person doing the training mentioned that sometimes they go into a hotel for a while till they can get into an apartment or a place of their own. So why don't you tell us,
Yeah.
explain a little of that to our listeners?
Yeah, so as far as like there's a process, families how they're assigned to which cities that they come to, and there's a whole network of contractors that work with the US government. Those are resettlement agencies. So we have two in Boise, and those resettlement agencies are responsible to get the initial housing, help them attend English classes, get them into a job. So there's a big push in that first 90 days to
Mhm.
get them on their own feet. But yes, the housing, if I'm gonna, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because there is a need, as you can imagine, with lots of people that just live here, is housing is difficult. So it used to be families would come here and within, a couple weeks they move into their own apartment. But now that's not the case because Boise's building housing like crazy, but the issue is the availability is very low. And then also the affordability range is very low. So um, sometimes families can wait up to 6 months in a hotel, which is very expensive. And actually people think new Americans are getting kind of a free ride, and they aren't. I mean, they're expected to pay back certain things, but they also have an allowance initially from the state and federal government to pay. And so hotels, as you can imagine, are very expensive. So I think that's a need, is definitely housing. We've had some people in the community volunteer part, like they have like a mother-in-law suite, they'll offer that, but that's takes a lot more work to get that going. But housing for sure is a need.
Mhm.
So the bigger the family, the longer they stay in hotels, is kind of the
Yeah.
trend I'm
So it's harder
noticing.
to, yeah,
Yeah, because
harder
they
to
have to
find.
resettle them not just in, it has to be so many bedrooms. There's like a regulation that the resettlement agencies have to follow. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely hard to be in a hotel. Actually, this morning, before this, I was driving a lady who is from Burma, the people group called the Karen, and
Right. Oh, yeah.
I drove her from a hotel in Meridian to her English class that's provided to her by the resettlement agency here in Boise. And so
Mhm.
I've known her family for a long time. And speaking of family reunification, the family I met, they're my neighbors basically. They're 8 years ago. They are my neighbors. I've known them for a long time. And then the aunt is who is here now. So she is getting
It's
herself
cool. Yeah.
plugged in. So it's a family reunification, which is wonderful. But there is just a lot of logistics we're trying to figure out to get her on her feet. She has 3 kids. So it's, yeah, transportation is a big thing too. So just on, I
Yeah,
tell
I'm
people
sure.
too, like if you have a car and you're just willing to drive, that's a huge help, because our bus system is limited. It's
Mm.
not always the best. And then oftentimes folks can't get a car right away. So there's obviously they have to have enough English and then learn the rules of the road and pass the
Right.
driving
Right.
test and then get an affordable car, all these things.
So
Um,
so thinking about taking people to an English class, or giving them a ride to a doctor or something like that, what are the biggest needs that maybe someone who doesn't want to take a leap, being like
yeah.
friending a family or whatever, but like to do that is less intimidating for someone who's never done this before?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Yeah, I kind of frame things in like this is like a lower commitment, this one's a higher
Yeah,
commitment.
right.
And I share these things from I'm a really good example when I started out of what not to do. Don't jump in. Everybody has great intentions. It's just if you don't have boundaries, if you do too much too soon when you're not trained or educated, you can burn yourself out.
Mhm.
And if you're not trained culturally sensitive, it could also do some damage. For example, if you offer pork to a family that's Muslim, that's a
Right,
big no-no. So
right.
just, and I'm sure these families, they have a lot of grace with Americans. They know we're not familiar with our culture, but we just want Yeah, we want the church to have a certain urgency to help, but also to do it in a way that's thoughtful. But as far as low bar, kind of low commitments to start small, yes, I think we have a way to plug in. We always are looking for drivers for our women's English class that meets Thursday mornings. I think they start at 9:30 every Thursday. And so we always, and they would have to be women drivers because it's a women's group, and many of them are Muslim background folks, so they're more comfortable with women drivers. So there's that. You know, and then also baby showers is a great one to plug in. I know
We have someone
we've
from
had,
our church who is
yeah,
doing
yeah,
those,
your
Sandra.
church,
Yeah.
yeah. That's been such a great connection. And so it's really a beautiful thing to see. Basically, GLocal gets connect referrals from local health clinics, the resettlement agencies for mothers that are here and they don't have their extended family. That's a huge network for them, but they don't have that typically to help welcome a baby. And as you can imagine, very expensive, lots of things to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And so we typically will host a shower where many of the items are donated through GLocal or through the church that's hosting, and usually can be done at a church or in someone's home, which is really nice, makes it more personal. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have local staff kind of lead it, and then play some fun games to kind of break the ice. And you could do a lot of communication without having
Mm-hmm.
the language. And
Language,
so the
right,
games are fun, makes it
right.
less intimidating. And then you sit there, share food. There is a translator to help if needed, and then we go through and open the gifts. And so that's a great way to plug into. Yeah, even like you could even just volunteer at the garden once a week. I tell people, you know, a lot of the gardeners, they come there, they have their own garden plot, they enjoy it. They don't typically need a lot of help, but we are responsible for common areas. So I find that when I invite volunteers to come on a work day and gardeners come too, like you get
Mm-hmm.
to know them by working next to each other. And there's no expectation like I'm going to receive this from you or vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. It's just talking and getting to know each other. So that's an easy way as well. I have a group of faithful volunteers that come every other week or once a month.
That's great.
Um,
Yeah,
so those are some kind of low, yeah, obviously the higher commitment, which is kind of the core of what GLocal is we
right.
call them local friends, where we actually intentionally partner you with a team, a local American group team,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere from 5 to 10 people is what we recommend. And then we partner them with a family who also wants a friendship, and they're
Okay,
not
so you're not doing it
caseworkers.
on your own. You're
No,
not doing it on your own.
that's the key. You're not doing it on your own.
Oh, I
Exactly.
just like had no
Again,
idea. Okay.
that's what I did. I did it by myself. Not a good idea. And so anyways, yeah, you meet with a family and then you are intentionally meeting with them. Someone on your team is meeting with the family at least once a week, doing things that are going to the grocery store. We talked about like
Mm-hmm.
riding the bus, getting comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
that, even taking them out to a fun outing, you know, like
Right.
they've been in a hotel for so long, and take the family to the zoo if they have kids. And so it's, I think people feel that's much more commitment. And so I wouldn't offer any volunteer to do that right off the bat unless they've been themselves. We do have some volunteers that have worked overseas, and so they're more familiar with that,
Right.
and that's fine. But again, like you said, point out, it's a team. It's not by
Right.
yourself.
Oh, I never knew that. Okay. And then another thing that like our church did, we had one of our activities and then we all brought one pots, the big pots. And we
Oh,
had like 20 of them that were brought to this, and so I was looking on your website on things like those kind of things, home things that people could contribute for people
oh
who don't
yes.
are kind of nervous about doing something else at first. And is that a good place? And then where do they take things uh, if they've collected items locally
Okay,
here?
yeah. Well, I'll just thank you for bringing that up. So people that want to donate, yes, there's always needs for that for first time people who are just arriving needing to help with that.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm going to do a quick plug here for something that we just started at GLocal. It's called One Thing. And I can share the flyer with you later, however, but we are asking either community groups or local churches if they want to commit to just one thing For example, like we're gonna commit to shampoo this month, shampoo, conditioner, and
Uh-huh.
that's it for like a
Uh-huh.
month. And just keep bringing that in, and then and this is something that's on our list. We have a basic list of what's required to provide
Mhm.
families, and so that's where it's coming from. The
Mhm.
resale agencies kind of help us with that. So people can do that if they're not really sure what to give. Definitely, we have a website with the things that we need. Once you have items, we would connect you with the program managers. The donations program is so big. We have two people that kind of manage it. So, and we have physical locations, yes, so where things can be dropped off. But I'm not offering that right now because I want folks to talk with the program managers. So I would
Mhm.
say if people have items, then they can reach out to our website, and there's like a general form, say, hey, I have something to
Okay.
donate. You
Yeah,
can fill,
great.
fill it
Yeah.
out, and then we'll put you in touch with Patty Canto is our furniture gal. So she can
Okay.
direct you what days are good. If you're able to drop them off is really
Mhm.
helpful.
Mhm.
And then we do pickups, but we try to encourage folks to drop them off if they can. And our location for that's in Meridian. And then as far as smaller household goods like bathroom cleaning products or linens or towels, our location is at a local church here in Boise. So you would work with Nancy on that. So again, just contact us on our website and our general email contact form, and then we put you in touch with the right person.
Okay. And I just think there's so much that we could do, even from us, like you said, different levels, from smaller to bigger. We could do so many different things. Um, I guess if I were sitting and talking with a family of new Americans, you know, what what would be some key things that would be like important for them to know, like, and know that I care about them?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Yeah.
To make them
Uh,
feel welcome, maybe, or not
yeah.
out of place, or
I think really, yeah, I think making an effort to learn about their country, like educate yourself a little bit on where they're coming from, and maybe learning to like put on your phone Google Translate and then make an effort to learn a few words in their language. That's huge. Like just take some time to be, hey, like how do you say this or that? I think that's really helpful. I think asking about their family members. In general, a lot of the cultures coming in are what I call warm climate culture, meaning
Mhm.
they put a lot of value on time with family and friends. For Americans, being a cold climate culture doesn't mean we're cold hearted. It just means that we're much more regimented with our time. Being productive is important. Following a tight schedule is important. For them, it's the opposite. They just really all about hospitality. So I would say too, if you as a volunteer, say for example, you're on like a furniture team and you drop off some stuff and they ask you to stay for tea. If you have time, I would
Yeah,
accept that.
stay.
That's
Right,
very powerful for them.
right,
Like
right.
I would say it's almost more important than the items that they receive
Yeah.
is just having your time and for them have an opportunity to give back is
Mhm.
so important to them.
Of course, yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
so a lot of cultures love giving tea. That's a big thing. Even if you don't
Mhm.
like tea, just pretend like you're drinking it. Like, and then just, yeah, it's fine. But I think just not being in such a rush, just build like for yourself as an American, just building in some extra time, recognizing when I go visit this person, it may not start in the way I expect, and just to be flexible.
Connect
Um,
rather than just dropping something off. Yeah,
yeah, and just
yeah,
rushing off, which I
yeah.
agree is not easy, being myself very much a type A, I like to get things done, but um I think just it's something you kind of have to learn and just jump in and
Mhm.
do. It is an adjustment, but those are a few things I think are important.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we want to give any contact info and things, and you can tell them to us, and then my husband will put them on to the
Great.
podcast along the bottom. So what would be some ways to connect? And then I guess also like people who aren't in Idaho, in other states, is GLocal, can they reach some things elsewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, so GLocal is not international, but
Mm,
we are just a small grassroots. There's other like-minded organizations like us throughout the US that just have different names, maybe are started by a different church group or community group. And so yeah, our website is local, so it's local with a G, localboise.org. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. There's that. And so but yeah, I think if people are out of the state, I mean, they certainly can donate. We have a way to donate online, cash donations, and that gives us the flexibility to spend it where we have the greatest need, is
mhm.
helpful. So that's always nice. But yeah, we yeah, GLocal's been for here about 10 years now. And so we definitely really enjoy plugging people in. Like I said, we work primarily with churches, but we've also worked with those that are not from a faith background. And also the schools as well. Teachers are wanting training on how to interact with students that are coming into their classroom from different cultures. So yeah, I think just grateful to be in this community that people are really welcoming here in general in this area.
That's great. Well, Carolyn, we're gonna get cut off here. So
Great.
I could actually I feel really passionate about this. I could talk about this for forever. But I thank you so much for being on Live Boldly Ministries podcast today. And I hope
Welcome.
this spurs some people on to help more within and maybe encourage their friends or their body, their church to get involved also. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that people will really be interested in this. I am. I mean, don't you want to meet your new neighbors? I do. And so
Yeah.
it's really great and really great for you to share with us today. And
Yeah. Oh, it's my
hopefully
privilege.
people will
Thank
be,
you.
yeah. So thank you so very much. And just really appreciate you taking time to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Well, it's great you have this platform just to encourage the church how to connect. So
Yeah,
it's very
yeah, it is
practical. I
good.
appreciate that.
It's a blessing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Bye.